Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And today it's Fantastic Four, volume number 6, which ran for 48 issues from 2018 to 2022, primarily written by Dan Slott. The last two issues were not, but pretty much all 46 were written by Dan Slott. So, what's it about? Well, first of all, it's been 3 years since there's been a Fantastic Four book. The last one was issue number 645, and it was published in 2015. There was a contract dispute between Marvel and Fox. Marvel wanted the rights to the Fantastic Four back in their fold, or at least have some say in the direction of the Fantastic Four. And when this didn't happen, the Marvel decided, you know what, we're not going to promote the Fantastic Four, so we're going to just stop publishing Fantastic Four comic books. And they did that for 3 years until things were resolved. And here we are in 2018 when Fantastic Four is relaunched with Dan Slott as the writer. And I'll mention this about the artwork. I liked the artwork throughout the entire series. It was good. It was dynamic. The flow was good. Composition, character design. I have absolutely no problems with the artwork. The thing is that there was multiple artists working on this title, and there wasn't one particular artist that I could say, hey, I can recognize their material. It all sort of blended together. I've heard good things about Sarah Bocelli, and she did some of the early stuff, but again, there was only like 3 issues that she did. Not enough for me to really notice a difference between that and say, oh, Stefano Laselli or Aaron Kudar or Peko Medina or Sean Izakski. These names, they don't mean anything to me right now. I mean, they're all artists and stuff, and maybe I will recognize some of their stuff later on, but here it just sort of all blended together. So good artwork, but nothing that really stood out for me. Okay, so that's the art. Dan Slott, as I say, wrote it. Now, I had heard some things about Dan Slott before reading this, and part of that was after the end of Avengers Endgame from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney and Marvel worked together on producing some streaming shows, WandaVision, which I did like. And one of them was a behind the scenes look at Marvel. And they focused, or at least one of the characters involved in that was Dan Slott. And he was portrayed somewhat as a lovable buffoon, somewhat. And it sort of rubbed people the wrong way. And some of his comments on social media rubbed people the wrong way. So he was coming, I was, a bit of a bad press in some circles for Dan Slott material. But, having not read any of Dan Slott's material, not in anything that I can recognize, I'm sure that I've read bits and pieces. But I haven't read a ton of books over the last 15 to 20 years, and that's when Dan Slott was writing, or has been writing, and is still writing. So I can't really say. So let's give him a fair shake and see what this book is about, written by Dan Slott. I mean, I do like the Fantastic Four, so let's dive in. This is issue number 1, and this is a variant, and I'm going to talk about the variants a little bit later, but there's plenty of issue number 1s. If you don't like this cover, I've even got a couple more that I'll show, but there's a ton. So, Dan Slott's story, we started off on the wrong foot. Okay. So, as we begin the story, the Fantastic Four, at least half of the Fantastic Four, Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm are on Earth, and it's been 5 years since something has happened to the remaining members of the Fantastic Four, Reed and Sue and their kids. They're missing, presumed dead. Ben presumes them to be dead. Johnny is still holding out hope, but it's been 5 years. So somewhere over that 3 year period when they were missing, they were still involved in the Marvel Universe and something happened. I don't know what that something is, but they've been gone for 5 years. And then a flare shows up near the end, and lo and behold, the Fantastic Four are alive and well, and the team reunites. Okay, which is fine. But my problem comes with what was going on with Reed and Sue during that 5 year time. They were working with Franklin, who is God, okay? Not godlike powers, he's like God. He is creating multiverses and planets by bucket loads while they've been away for 5 years to replenish the multiverse that somehow got damaged. I think the series is Secret Wars. I don't know. But there seems to be some onus on, well, we've got to replace what was destroyed. I don't know why that is a must, but it seems to be a must. What sort of hurt me about it was the way the cavalier attitude towards creating a planet, not just a planet, but a universe. It's just like a bunch of kids were sitting around a table eating Cheetos and drinking soda and saying, "Hey, I think this planet should have a little bit more caves. Oh, let's make that one have big floppy ears. That creature can have big floppy ears." It just seemed to me that there wasn't enough thought. I mean, you take a look at our own planet, and there's this plant here, and a bug eats this plant, and a bird eats that bug, and a predator eats that bird. And if that bird was allowed to grow, it would overtake the area of that bird over here, and that bird provides sustenance for this creature that creates and produces that. It's like it's so interconnected and so tied together, and just to be sitting around a table eating cheese doodles and saying, "Well, that's floppy ears sounds like fun." And they give them sentience. There's whole races of people that are being created. It just seems like it's such a cavalier approach to creating not just one multiverse, but multiple multiverses. And I can just see Reed, and it just seems just so wrong. I mean, he used to smoke a pipe, but I could see him smoking a pipe saying, "Well, son, maybe they shouldn't have such floppy ears." "Aw, Dad, let's make them have floppy ears." "All right, son." It struck me as just too cavalier as to be creating these worlds without a second thought. And the other thing is, they did give a reason as to why Reed and Sue and the group have not returned back to, the planet where Ben, who has, been depressed for 5 years, and Johnny, who's been living in hope for 5 years, why they haven't returned home. There's a cheap excuse given, but really, you've got two of the smartest people on the planet in Reed Richards and Valeria Richards, and a god, and you cannot figure out how to get back. Okay, other than these certain circumstances, whatever. All right, so I'm off on the wrong foot because I don't like this explanation. Gone is fine, but I'm not crazy about the explanation. So I'm just, here, I'm going to show you another number one. Here's another number one. So they get back, and it turns out, okay, so 5 years, that's fine. It's only been 3 years for us, but it's been 5 years for them. Although, again, this is one of these things, and it's fine. This one was okay. It's just, all right, it's not quite that. I mean, when we last left Valeria, she was, what, 3, maybe 4, but now she's a teenager, or 12. So 12, 13, something like that. So it's not been 5 years. It's been more like 8 to 10. And that's fine. You want to work with these kids as young teenagers as opposed to sort of that mid ground of being 8 to 10 years old or whatever. That's fine. That's for story elements. That's fine. But just don't go back on it. Don't retro and say, "Oh, well, really, they're only 6." No, stop that. Just move forward to this. This is the age they are now. We will move forward with them being this age. Okay, so as I say, I'm started off a little bit on the wrong foot, and the first story arc is fine, and then we get to the marriage. This was the thing. This was an important event, and it's kind of turned my opinion on what was happening with the story. This is actually a very family-oriented book. It talks a lot about family. Like some people like to do the exploration, some of them are more science fiction. This really does concentrate on a lot of family as being part of the crux of the whole story. So in issue number 5, and we'll get there, Ben and Alicia get married. And I am so thankful for this. I'm very happy about this. And why am I happy about this? Well, Alicia's been around, since issue 8 of the original series from the 60s. And this on again, off again relationship has been going on for almost these full 60 years. And there's always been this story beat where Ben walks around and says, "Oh, I'm such a monster. Nobody will ever love me." And Alicia has to say, "Oh, Ben, I love you not for what you look like," because I can't see anyways, I'm blind, "but for the man that's inside." And this beat goes on and on. There's numerous stories that have that particular storyline, and it's a good storyline, and it's good for kids to be reading or anybody to be reading to say, listen, it isn't what you look like outside; it's what's inside that counts. So that's a good theme. That's a good topic, a good lesson. But it has been told so many times in the Fantastic Four, with having them get married, it puts that story to bed. I don't have to hear it anymore. I don't have to read about it anymore. We can actually, Ben Grimm can actually move forward with his life and face some new challenges and things as a husband. I'm very happy that they get married and this is what happens. Um, but in the same breath, one of the other things that I didn't like about Dan Slott's run is his characterization. It wasn't wrong, or it was just a little off. And I'll give you an example here of what Reed Richards does. Reed Richards is selected as the best man. So as a best man for your best friend, you're supposed to be there for him for whatever he needs. Oh man, I need to get my shoes shined. I'll take care of that for you. But Reed isn't there for any of it. He's not there for the tuxedo fitting. He's not there for the bachelor party. He's late to the wedding. And why is he late to the wedding? It's because he's secluded himself in his lab working on the best wedding gift ever. Okay, well, if there was a genuine threat happening, I can see him getting secluded and saying, I got to protect the earth. I'm sorry. But this is your best friend, and you're the best man. You do what he needs. And what he needs is somebody to go pick up his shoes. What he needs is somebody to come with him to the tuxedo fitting. What he needs is to see your support at the bachelor party. That's what he needs. He doesn't need you to come up with the world's best wedding gift. And as I say, I can see Reed possibly doing that, but with all the changes that have happened over the years where he's become a little bit more conscious of the social aspect, the family aspect, and being in there, I think that's highly unlikely. I think he would go get the shoes. I think he would, be there for the tuxedo fitting. So I didn't like the character choice. And there's a number of these that happen throughout the book where I say, that's not exactly what I would see the character doing. I can see it within that realm of possibility, but unlikely. And there seems to be a fair amount of unlikelies as opposed to likelies. So that part, but again, that's probably my big complaints about Dan Slott, because moving on from here on in, I pretty much enjoyed the run. So let's go through it. So I'm giving it a recommendation right now, and then we'll go through it as we'll go through. We'll talk a little bit about the collecting, speculating, and the various storylines that go along. But I do recommend Dan Slott's run. So you can stop here if you don't want to have any spoilers, but I am going to spoil things. So okay, so we're talking about variants. This is another issue number one. I have one more issue number one. Okay, so variant covers. There was a comment made in issue number one about the variant. I don't know exactly what kind of tone that whoever was writing the piece was saying, but he was somewhat, saying, "Oh my, you're going to need like this. It's the strength of Ben Grimm to carry all of the various variant covers that we have for issue number one." And I don't know if it was a tone sort of said, "Well, you know what? Maybe we've done too much of this sort of stuff," or it was just to educate you that there are that many variant covers, because there's, I don't know, like about 50 variants for issue number one, and and I've got some of these variants throughout the Fantastic Four run. There's just tons of variants. The series runs 48 issues, and I would be, I wouldn't surprise me if somebody said yes, but there are 200 individual issues because of covers and variants. Now you might want to collect variants, and that's perfectly fine. Hey, however you enjoy it. I know that there are new collectors, and that's what they like. They like the variant covers. They like it for the collecting reasons, and a number of them like it for speculation reasons. I'm not there, and it doesn't bother me that there's all these variants. I think it did at first, and I don't know why. And I asked myself, why? Why would that bother you? And it shouldn't, because it doesn't matter to me if if the variants didn't sell, then Marvel wouldn't produce them. But they're making money from variants, and people are enjoying buying the variants. So as soon as one or two of those things happen, and usually it'll be working together, if people stop buying the variants, they'll stop making money, they'll stop making them. But in the meantime, they're variants, and if you want to play the speculator game with variants, have at her. I'm not interested in doing that, but there's nothing to stop you from doing that. So there's a ton of variants when it comes down to the Fantastic Four, and as I say, and the thing is, all the variants that I bought were all, most of this collection was bought in a $2 bin. There was a few books that I had to pick up that were $3 to $5 just because I wanted to complete it, and it's not so easy to always find stuff in the dollar bin. So I had to pay a little bit of extra, but no more extra for a variant copy than I would for a regular copy. So all of these books, very, very low price. So issue number one, as I say, there's about 50 different variants, and I've got three. And if I see another one out there, again, for a low price that I don't have, yeah, I'll probably buy it because I collect Fantastic Four. So let's go on. So there was that first story arc, and then we have issue 4. Here's your first, what I would consider a spec book, and it's not even a very, very good spec book. It's issue number 4, features a team known as the Libertines. Do I have their names yet? The 4 members of the Libertines are 2D, Hope, Iceberg, and Ms. America. And they were formerly from the Initiative, based out in Pennsylvania. For those that didn't know the Initiative, there was an Avengers title. And they tried to set up a team in every one of the states. And so the Pennsylvania state was, these guys here is known as the Libertines, but now they're known as the Fantastics with an X. So this is the first time that they're called the Fantastics. And they have a brief shot. It's really, really a weak spec book because if they were anything, it would be their original appearances as opposed to this collective. This is the wedding issue, and I like this one. I like the cover. I like the fact that that they're making not a statement, but reminding you that Benjamin Grimm is Jewish, and that's good. I applaud that. They don't ignore that part of his history or his background. So, and I did like I like the idea that we're moving forward with Ben Grimm's story. This is a nice book. I got another variant here, and again, I just happened to pick up because I needed issue number 6. And this is the beginning of a Doom and Galactus storyline. And again, Galactus sort of goes a little off script as far as character, but that's okay. It was a decent enough run. But this one introduces a character named Victorious, who is partly created by Doctor Doom, and she's a Latvian native. I really like her. I think she's a very interesting character, very strong-willed. Very loyal to Doctor Doom and to Latveria. A lot of good things I would say about Victorious. I think she's an interesting character, and if I was to spec on any book, this would be one of the 2 that I would really concentrate on. So it would be issue number 6, which is her first appearance. There were a lot of events going on during this run. War of the Realms was one of them. I don't know much about War of the Realms. I haven't read anything of it, and honestly, I'm looking at the cover, and I just read this one not so very long ago, and I can't remember a thing about it. So that might be one of a collector. You might want to collect that. I don't know. So in issues number, what is it, 12 and 13? 12 and 13, we get a Ben Grimm story. It was very good. It's the Hulk versus the Thing. We get another Hulk versus Thing cover. The Puppet Master is involved in that, which makes sense because, Ben Grimm and Alicia are on their honeymoon when the Hulk interrupts, and the Puppet Master has something to do with it because he's not so crazy about things. So we get another Hulk and Thing cover. I like this cover. It's not my favorite Hulk Thing cover, but for those that collect, issue number 12. This is another variant. I actually have a couple more variants of issue number 14. This is the beginning of a storyline called Point of Origin. One of the things that Dan Slott does with his stories as well is that I don't know if he rewrites or he embellishes history, not just of Fantastic Four, but somewhat of also various aspects of the Marvel universe. And in this one, he absolves Reed Richards of the mathematical mistake that caused the shielding to fail and create the Fantastic Four. He shifts the blame to somebody else. Now, what this does is it again it removes a story beat that I'm happy to have removed, and that's when Ben Grimm goes on a rampage because look what you did to me, you turned me into a monster, and Reed has all this guilt about doing that, but absolving him of it and saying no, it wasn't your fault, Reed, your math was correct, it was these people over here that did that. So we end that particular story beat, and I'm happy about that, and Ben Grimm can move on. And Reed Richards should move on, but he doesn't. He still feels guilty because he should have known that somebody 40 million light years away was going to have, going to do something to muck up his rocket flight. And that's, to me, that's a little bit mad thinker thinking, where you're trying to eliminate or examine every possibility. And you can't. The mad thinker always fails. Stop thinking that way. I mean, your wedding gift that you offered, it had mad thinker arrogance to it, and it's not really all that good a gift. So he's heading into mad thinker territory under Dan Slott's run. I also didn't care. I get it that in the beginning, when they first, the very first issue of Fantastic Four, when they all ball off into a rocket ship and take off, and it's like, okay, why is Johnny Storm there? You get the other ones there, and you get Sue Storm even because wherever Reed goes, I'm going, and that's young love and whatever. But why did Johnny Storm go? And well, he went because he went there for his lust for kicks. That's what he did, the thrill of it all, and that worked. Just leave it like that. But instead, Dan Slott gives him a little bit more. He makes him have a greater commitment and responsibility, and tries hard to find a reason to be on that rocket ship, be a backup pilot or whatever, and learn and all that sort of stuff. And that's, there was nothing written about that. This is the first time we're hearing about it. The problem is it doesn't quite fit in with Johnny Storm's character over the last 60 years. He hasn't shown that degree of commitment, and he hasn't shown that degree of responsibility. So to say that in this one short period of time he did it, he was that, it's not so easy to accept, I don't think. And moving forward with further stories in this run with Johnny Storm, you do not see that level of responsibility or commitment. So this is the beginning of that Point of Origin story. Issue 14, and again, as I said, plenty of variants on that one. Issue 15 introduces a new group of characters called the Unparalleled, and particularly a character named Sky. Sky is a cross between the Angel and Banshee, a flying, screeching a superhero. She's eventually brought back to Earth, and we start to take a look a little bit at a sort of a stranger in a strange land type of storyline, and it starts being interesting, but is pretty much dropped. Sky does show up throughout bits and pieces of Fantastic Four, but the whole idea of let's explore the stranger in a strange land, I know that's been done before by a number of characters and a number of different writers, and it just, like Dan Slott says, no, that's not why I wanted to bring her back to Earth. It had more to do with Johnny Storm and what's going on with his world, so that particular aspect of the storyline we're not really going to address. So issue number 21, there was, and I've just recently read this, another event called Empire, which is the Kree and Skrull have made an alliance, and they're versus the Kotati, plant-based people. Anyways, I won't go into the story right now. Here we have the zombie variant cover. But I will talk about a book called The Empire of the Fantastic Four. This one here, issue number 0, uh, because it features the first appearance of Joven, who is the Kree kid, and Nakala, who is the Skrull kid. So these two children have had, in the case of Joven, he's had all of, well, a huge number of Kree battle scenarios and battle, actually, things that actually happen in battle, imprinted in his mind. So he's aware of all of these Kree battles. Many of them are versus the Skrulls. Nakala has imprinted on her all of these battles as well. And many of them, most of them, versus the Kree. So they have all of that knowledge and the technique and what have you, and the skills necessary to do these mock battles in a gladiator pit. So they're put on show, on display, and it's to the death, and then there's magic to bring them back to life type of thing, and people bet on it. Bet on which one is going to win. I mean, in this particular battle, the Kree did win, but because they are individuals and there's no written script or choreography, this time the Skrull wins, and so there's betting. Well, the Fantastic Four take these kids away from this, and ultimately Ben and Alicia adopt the kids as their own, which again is the whole family thing. Our family has expanded for so long. Ben has been that uncle that's just like one slight step sort of outside of the family. No blood relation, is just friends and all that. But now he has a family of his own. I mean, just that from where he was at the beginning of the book, now he's got a wife and 2 kids. And we're exploring the family of that. But I really like these 2 kids. I think they're great. They're not a spin-off of other kids. They're not a Spider kid, a Wolverine kid, or a knockoff on that. They are their own original kids. I know that they're Kree and they're Skrull, but the imprinting is new for this, and their youth and their exuberance, and they are these strangers in a strange land now when they come back to Earth. I really like the kids, and this is their first appearance. Fantastic Four Empire, issue 0. 25th issue, a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, who passed. Also introduces a couple of characters, Helmsman and the Cormorant, art by R.B. Silva. Those characters come back later on, but they're, nothing special. For those that collect things, this is a Silver Surfer shows up in this one, as well as some other characters, but this is a Silver Surfer issue in number 27. What do we got here? This is King in Black. Now, I've mentioned King in Black sometimes when I do my, purchases thing. I have no idea. I think the King of Black has something to do with Venom. I'm not positive because I haven't read it, but it's another event that I haven't read. So, for those that are collecting it, now the Bride of Doom storyline actually started one issue earlier, in issue number 32, but I like this cover better of the bunch of the sort of this Bride of Doom. It was a fun storyline. It was heartbreaking for some, interesting for others. I enjoyed this particular storyline. And that's all I'm going to say about this one. I will say that the character of Laya, the Skrull that Johnny had married in the past, she makes a return engagement. And there's this weird little subplot going on with Alicia that thankfully is dropped. It's like only lasts for a couple of panels. But it's like, don't go there. And thankfully they didn't. So I do like the Bride of Doom storyline. I thought it was a good storyline, and it does have a lot to do with Johnny Storm, and it does affect Johnny Storm an awful lot. But again, it also shows his the no responsibility and commitment type of person that Johnny Storm is. He's just living by the seat of his pants type of guy. I'm surprised that they didn't mention anything at all about Sue being married to Doom at one point. And then after all is said, we did get to the 60th issue, the 60th anniversary issue. It wasn't a bad issue. The idea was that had to go back in time and collect various little items to prevent Kang from doing something. So they go back in time and visit old adventures throughout the years. And this is just like a little sidebar as to what happened during that adventure. It was all right as a 60. I like the concept. I wasn't really crazy about the execution. It looked, I don't know, is it a little light for? I suppose it's supposed to be light. I'm not looking for any heavy drama. I just think the idea is clever. I just didn't think the execution was. This one I'm just showing you because it was another nice variant. I think, another variant still to come. But I did like this variant cover, and again, no more than it cost me to buy a copy of this issue number 38. And the final bit of Dan Slott's run was this thing called the Reckoning War. And the Reckoning War, I started with issue number 40. I like the Reckoning War. It goes into, again, something about the Watchers, and it tries to explain them a little bit better and some of their reasons for what they did. It was an intense, and it was a very kind of thrilling kind of end to Dan Slott's run. The only problem is I didn't quite like the ending of the Reckoning War. I thought it was a really strong build up, a lot of things going on, a lot of characters moving around and doing things, very heroically and just. But at the end of it, when all was said and done, it was almost as if we pushed a reset button. And a number of things that had happened that would have had like catastrophic effect, but also other sometimes even minor effect, they were all undone. It was just like we'll wipe the slate clean of everything that the Reckoning War did. There's still some leftover bits and pieces, but the huge effect, or even some of those effects, they were sort of negated by pushing this reset button. And then finally, this was his. This was again another variant. This was the last one, issue number 46. I don't know why Ben Grimm's eyes are red. Maybe he was looking into the camera. But this was issue number 46. As I say, there was issues 47 and 48, which were part of the Judgment Day storyline. Again, another event that I haven't been familiar. Although it's all about a celestial making a judgment on the human race, and Reed realizing that it's I'm being a family man is the best judgment that can be made. Okay, and then we sign off, and that's the end of volume 6 of the Fantastic Four, 48 issues. And as I say, overall, starting off a little bit on the bad, but overall, I did enjoy the run. I think it has some issues and problems. There was the whole Franklin's no longer a mutant controversy that came up. People were upset that Dan Slott wrote in that he's no longer a mutant, and I think that's not so much of a big thing for me. I mean, what's the real difference between, say, a mutant and a superpower? I mean, that's what the world is afraid of, is the powers, not some of the other things. But I thought that Professor X again played in character, but also out of character. I mean, Franklin was visiting with all his mutants at Krakoa and, a mutant island. And when they discovered that he's not a mutant, oh no, you can't come here anymore. Well, isn't this exactly what Professor X was all talking about for so long? Is that, inclusive? You should be a member. So he had friends there. So does this mean Danny Moonstar from the New Mutants, she can't go there either because she lost her mutant powers? It just seems out of character that that there's got to be exceptions made. I mean, the whole idea is a certain inclusive. You're supposed to, work together. Anyways, that didn't make much difference to me that he's not a mutant. I thought the characterization of Professor X was in line, because I've never really liked Professor X, but also very much out of line. Saying all that, I did like the read. I thought it was a good read for a Fantastic Four fan. They would enjoy this. It's very, very building on the whole family thing. There's a lot of older characters that showed up again, like Doom, Galactus, Hulk, Puppet Master, and there's a bunch of new characters that show up in Victorious and the kids, which I really liked, and there's actual progression in character himself. Ben Grimm getting married and getting a family is the biggest change, and it's to me a very positive change. It means that we can move forward with new storylines that involve Ben Grimm as a family man, and also the family, the expanded family, and we can explore what that all is all about. So I'm looking forward to that. So I did like the run. I did like the read. Had some problems, but overall good. I've gone through the spec books, as I say, Victorious in issue number 6, and the kids in Fantastic Four Empire Zero. I think are your best spec books. Would I, invest in any of this? As I said, there's 48 issues and probably 200 different copies because of all the variants. Which one of these variants is going to be the one to spark interest down the road? I have no idea. Is there any particular book in this section without being a variant that I would consider, investment? As I say, I would buy some of these spec books just and keep them one. I wouldn't grade them or anything. All of this stuff is somewhere in the nines, anyways, and I'd wait and see what takes shape and moves forward. So that's it for me today about Fantastic Four Volume 6. I've already talked far too long. And then next time we will look at the Ryan North run for Fantastic Four Volume number 7. Until then, be good to yourself, be good to others, and we'll talk again soon.